What if the smartest person in the room isn't the one speaking, but the one quietly observing, already 5 steps ahead? While others react, he watches. While others chase control, he moves with precision. This isn't manipulation, it's perception. And the ancient Stoics mastered it long before modern psychology gave it a name. In this video, you'll learn 4 powerful Stoic principles that will help you outsmart without being obvious. You'll discover how to detach from emotion, to see with clarity, observe yourself with brutal honesty, use silence as a weapon, and read the patterns that guide people's actions. This isn't about playing games. It's about seeing through them. With these tools, you'll move through life with quiet confidence and subtle influence. If you're tired of being reactive and ready to become unshakably clear and calm, like this video, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, and let's begin.
Number 1.
Detach from emotion, see with clarity. The first principle in learning how to outsmart others without them knowing isn't about intellect or cunning strategy. It begins with emotion, more specifically, your ability to detach from it. The Stoics taught that true wisdom starts the moment you stop letting your emotions hijack your perception. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire and battled his own storms in silence, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant was simple. The battlefield is not the world, it's within. And if you lose that battle, every victory out there will taste hollow. The uncomfortable truth is this. Emotions are not reality. They're signals, yes, but distorted ones. They whisper from the depths of ego, fear, attachment, and pride. And when you react to them impulsively, you don't see the world as it is. You see it through the lens of your wounds. You misread silence as rejection, criticism as attack, disagreement as betrayal. This isn't clarity. This is confusion wearing the mask of urgency. Now, think about the last time you were deeply offended. Was it truly the situation or your story about it? Were you responding to a fact or defending a fragile identity? Most people don't pause to ask. They feel something, and that feeling becomes law. But feelings aren't commands, they're weather. And just like weather, they change. If you don't anchor yourself, you'll be carried away by every emotional gust that passes. To be stoic is not to be cold, it is to be clear. Detachment is not apathy. It is awareness. It's the disciplined space between stimulus and response. It's the ability to observe your rising emotion and choose not to let it drive the steering wheel. Epictetus warned that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And judgments born from emotional chaos are never wise. They're impulsive, and the impulsive man is always 2 steps behind. Seneca, who lived amidst the decadence and danger of Roman power, once wrote, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." He knew firsthand that an uncontrolled emotional reaction doesn't just weaken you, it exposes you. Every outburst, every sulk, every passive-aggressive jab gives others the blueprint to manipulate you. But the one who can sit still through discomfort, who can stay present while the storm rages, becomes unreadable, unshakable, and quietly powerful. Now look at Nelson Mandela. After 27 years in prison, he stepped out not with vengeance, but with vision. He said, "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." That wasn't sainthood, that was Stoicism. He saw emotion clearly and chose clarity over reactivity. And that clarity allowed him to lead a divided nation with quiet strength. So how do you cultivate this in daily life? First, you catch the initial spark. Emotions rise fast, but awareness can be faster. When you feel heat in the chest, tightness in the jaw, tension behind your eyes, pause, breathe, ask, what story am I creating about this moment? Is it useful? Is it based on truth or on ego? This is the moment you either break the cycle or repeat it. Then you wait, you let the emotion pass. You observe it, name it, and release it. You remind yourself, I am not my anger, I am not my fear, I am not my pride, I am the one watching, like a mountain watches the weather, like the ocean holds calm beneath the storm. The Stoics practiced a technique called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. They would imagine the worst-case scenarios, not to invite anxiety, but to prepare the mind. Seneca would visualize loss, rejection, failure, so that when these things came, they didn't crush him. He'd already met them in thought and had trained himself to stay level. This practice builds immunity to emotional shocks, and that immunity is the foundation of foresight. Now imagine this in action. You're in a meeting. Someone undermines your work. The average person would bristle, defend, retaliate, but not the Stoic. The Stoic pauses. He observes not just the insult, but the insecurity behind it. He waits, responds with calm, and suddenly the entire dynamic shifts. The attacker looks unstable. The Stoic looks composed. Power is transferred quietly. This is how you outsmart others without anyone knowing. You don't interrupt. You don't explain yourself excessively. You don't react. You let their chaos expose them. You remain grounded. Most people live like open books, but the Stoic becomes a sealed manuscript, mysterious, measured, and unreadable to those who seek control. You won't master this in a day. Detachment is repetition. It's catching yourself 1 second earlier each time. It's choosing silence when your ego wants to scream. It's writing down what triggered you and studying it, not to shame yourself, but to understand yourself, because self-awareness is the seat of power. When you stop reacting, you begin seeing. You see patterns others miss. You notice motives behind smiles. You feel when something is off, not emotionally, but intuitively. Because your vision is no longer clouded by noise, you've cleared the lens. Detachment reconnects you with the part of yourself that doesn't need to be right, liked, or heard. It reclaims your energy. It protects your peace. It allows you to play the long game, where the reward isn't applause, but freedom. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't rise, don't respond, don't explain, just observe. The more they need you to react, the more power you gain by staying still. Because you're not reacting anymore. You're seeing. And once you start seeing, you're no longer in the game. You're above it.
Number 2.
Observe yourself like a stranger. If you want to master the world, first master your own reflection. That's what the Stoics believed. But here's the problem. Most people don't see themselves clearly. They confuse personality with principle, emotion with identity, and performance with authenticity. And so, they move through life blind to their own patterns, unaware of how they truly affect others. They are strangers to themselves, yet assume they understand the world. That's a dangerous illusion. The second principle is this. Observe yourself like a stranger, as if you were studying someone else. Watch your tone, your posture, your patterns. Ask not just what you do, but why you do it. Because true awareness doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from stepping outside yourself, seeing your habits as if you had no emotional attachment to them. Only then can you correct them. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in his meditations, often used this technique. He would describe his own behaviors in third person, not to shame himself, but to train detachment. He wrote, "You must be more straightforward and simple, and observe yourself as if you were another." Imagine that, an emperor watching his own ego, analyzing his own pride, as if it belonged to a stranger. That is the kind of discipline that silences self-deception. Because here's the truth. Most of your suffering doesn't come from what others do to you. It comes from how you interpret, react, and repeat. You project insecurities, you respond to past wounds, you miscommunicate not because you're malicious, but because you're unaware. And that's why observing yourself like a stranger is not just wise, it's necessary. Let's get practical. Next time you feel frustrated, don't vent, don't justify, just sit in silence for 5 minutes and ask, if I were watching someone else behave this way, what would I think of them? Would I respect it? Would I trust it? Would I follow it? This is where growth begins, in quiet confrontation, in objective honesty. Take Maya Angelou, she once said, when people show you who they are, believe them. But the Stoic flips that inward. When you show yourself who you are, believe it, study it, don't excuse it. Maybe you interrupt too much. Maybe you chase validation. Maybe your silence isn't confidence, it's fear. Until you see it clearly, you can't change it. This isn't about self-criticism, it's about self-auditing. The same way a Stoic wouldn't judge a storm, you don't judge your own thoughts. You examine them with precision, with calm. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And much of that suffering is self-created, through unchecked thought loops, irrational conclusions, and stories we tell ourselves that no longer serve us. Observation breaks that loop. So here's the daily practice: journaling without performance. Write down not what happened, but how you responded, not what you wanted, but why you wanted it. Were you patient? Were you honest? Were you kind because you meant it, or because you feared rejection? The goal is to get under your own mask, because clarity only lives beneath performance. And this matters not just for your peace, but for your presence. People can feel when you lack self-awareness. They may not articulate it, but they sense it. They sense the contradiction between your words and your energy, your silence and your resentment. But the person who knows themselves thoroughly, who understands both their light and shadow, becomes magnetic, not because they perform well, but because they're integrated. Consider the philosopher Michel de Montaigne. He spent years examining his own behavior through essays, not to impress readers, but to make sense of himself. He believed that knowing oneself honestly was the beginning of wisdom, not in theory, but in daily gritty introspection. That's what this principle demands, not thoughts about virtue, but the courage to watch your own vices without flinching. And here's what happens when you do. Your reactions slow down, your words carry weight, your choices stop being driven by insecurity. Because when you know your own triggers, your own flaws, your own tendencies, you stop leaking energy trying to protect them. You move with quiet confidence. You own your weaknesses before anyone can weaponize them. You outsmart manipulation not by force, but by clarity. This is why self-observation is one of the most powerful Stoic tools. Not just to become better, but to become whole. And when you're whole, you can't be played. You can't be easily offended. You can't be knocked off center by someone else's chaos. You see it all coming because you've already seen it in yourself. So start today. Study yourself with the calm intensity of a wise mentor. Don't just ask how you feel. Ask why you feel it. Don't just ask what you said. Ask what it revealed. Because in that reflection, you'll find every answer you're looking for out there. And when others look at you, confused by your peace, thrown off by your presence, unsettled by your silence, they won't know what it is, but you will. You'll know. It's not mystery. It's not magic. It's clarity born from brutal honesty. And the world cannot compete with someone who truly knows themselves.
Number 3.
Master the pause, master yourself. Powerful people don't rush. They don't scramble to explain or react just to fill the silence. They wait, they observe, and when they speak, it's intentional, measured, final. That's not a coincidence. It's a sign of internal mastery. The third Stoic principle is this: master the pause, because in every moment of silence, you gain something that reactive people lose: control. Now think about it. When was the last time you said something you regretted? Not because it was wrong, but because it was premature? In a heated moment, we reach for words like weapons. But the Stoic sees that impulse for what it is: weakness disguised as urgency. The pause is not an absence of action. It is the most deliberate action, the one that separates instinct from insight, emotion from strategy. Seneca wrote, "No man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom is the result of reflection, and reflection requires pause." The average person talks to be heard, but the Stoic waits to understand. The difference is everything, because the pause reveals more than you could ever ask for. It's in the pause that people get uncomfortable and start revealing their intentions. It's in the silence that the truth escapes, not always in what is said, but in what is not said. There's a reason why skilled negotiators, therapists, and leaders master silence. Because most people can't handle it. Silence pressures the dishonest. It confuses the insecure. It reveals the impatient. And it empowers the one who can sit still in it. When you learn to pause, you stop chasing clarity. You create it. Look at the life of Leonardo da Vinci. Not as a warrior, but as a thinker, Da Vinci was known for his slow, deliberate process. He once said, "People of accomplishment rarely sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things." But that happening was not frantic, it was thoughtful. He would stare at a canvas for hours before a single brushstroke. He understood that in the pause, the vision forms. In the stillness, the idea becomes sharp. That principle doesn't only apply to painting, it applies to living. And Marcus Aurelius used the same in governance. He rarely acted on impulse. Instead, he let his mind settle before making judgments. He asked himself, "Is this necessary?" over and over. That question itself is a pause, a wedge between ego and action, between fear and choice. Now let's bring this into daily life. You're in a conversation. Someone throws shade. You feel the surge in your chest. Your mind scrambles for a comeback. That's your lower nature, wanting revenge, not resolution. But the Stoic pauses. He breathes. He observes. He allows the silence to do the work for him. 9 times out of 10, the other person will reveal more than they intended because they expected a fight, not composure. The pause is power because it does 2 things at once. First, it gives you space to choose your response. Second, it makes other people nervous. They interpret your silence as depth, as calculation, as strength. Why? Because in a world addicted to noise, the man who doesn't flinch becomes a mirror. He reflects others back to themselves, and they don't always like what they see. And let's be clear, this isn't about being manipulative, it's about creating mental space. Because reacting too quickly is a form of mental poverty. It shows you don't own your attention, you don't own your energy, you don't even own your voice. You're a slave to triggers, and the Stoic refuses to live that way. Even in something as simple as texting, notice how people respond instantly, impulsively, emotionally. But what if you didn't? What if you paused? You'd see the game being played. You'd see the bait. And more importantly, you'd stop rewarding people for provoking you. That's the hidden benefit of mastering the pause. It trains others how to treat you. The pause is also where creativity is born. Great thinkers and writers throughout history have praised it. Virginia Woolf called it moments of being, the still points between action where truth reveals itself. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote that, "When we are quiet enough, we hear the whisper of the gods. In those moments of silence, something higher takes the wheel. Insight emerges not by force, but by surrender." Now consider the difference between two kinds of people. One reacts quickly, talks constantly, fills every moment with noise. The other listens more than he speaks only when necessary, pauses before responding. One is forgettable. The other commands respect, not by volume, but by presence. Presence is the product of pause, and when you have presence, you don't need to prove anything. Your restraint speaks louder than your reaction. Your stillness creates space for gravity, and gravity pulls people in. Of course, this isn't easy, especially if you've been taught to equate silence with weakness, or if you've used words your whole life as a defense mechanism. But mastering the pause isn't about withholding. It's about refining. It's about choosing when and how to act with purpose. It's about making your words and your energy count. So here's your challenge. For the next 24 hours, when you feel the urge to respond immediately, don't wait 3 seconds. Breathe, observe. You'll be surprised what you notice. You'll see how much of what's said doesn't deserve a reply. You'll realize that most arguments are invitations to lower yourself. And you'll feel what real control is, not dominance over others, but sovereignty over self. The Stoic knows that silence is never empty. It is always full of observation, awareness, intention, and that's the paradox. The less you say, the more people listen. The less you react, the more power you hold. Because true power never announces itself. It doesn't need to. So the next time you're tempted to rush, to interrupt, to explain, don't. Let the pause hang. Let it stretch just long enough to make the other person curious or uncomfortable. That's when you know you've taken control, not of them, but of yourself. And once you've mastered that, they'll never see you the same way again, because power delivered in silence echoes louder than 1,000 empty words.
Number 4.
See the pattern, move with wisdom. The final principle is subtle, but once you see it, you can never unsee it. The Stoics understood that life doesn't happen in chaos. It happens in patterns. People repeat themselves. Mistakes echo, emotions cycle, and the man who can detect these rhythms within himself and in others moves with a kind of wisdom that looks like prophecy to those still reacting to the moment. Most people live in fragments. They treat every event as isolated, every betrayal as unique, every failure as a surprise. But the Stoic sees deeper. He notices what repeats, not just in the world, but in himself. That's the turning point. Because once you see the pattern, you don't just avoid mistakes. You anticipate outcomes. You move before things collapse. You sidestep manipulation before it fully forms. That is not luck. That is foresight born from observation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe continually all that comes to pass by change, and accustom yourself to think that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things which are and to make new ones like them." What he meant was that nothing is random. Everything, even change, follows structure. And by learning that structure, you gain an advantage that others can't fake. Let's start with your own life. Look back, really look. Where do you fall short again and again? Is it in overcommitting? In chasing people who pull away? In reacting too fast when you feel disrespected? These aren't one-time flaws. They're patterns, and if you don't name them, they will rule you. The Stoic doesn't just admit his patterns, he maps them. And once mapped, he reshapes them. Take, for example, the story of Carl Jung. He noticed that patients would return to the same emotional struggles again and again, no matter how much advice they received. So he stopped focusing on surface problems and started looking at unconscious patterns, repeating fears, reactions, and beliefs formed in childhood. He realized that until these were confronted, the pattern would repeat endlessly. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That is pure Stoicism, making the hidden pattern visible so you can act with clarity. This applies not only to the self, but to others. Human nature doesn't change much. The same insecurities, motives, and power dynamics repeat across families, businesses, and nations. And if you study behavior without judgment, you begin to see through the surface. You'll notice how the person who flatters you excessively tends to be the one who resents you later. How the person who demands constant reassurance is often the one preparing to leave. Or how those who insult in jokes often carry deep envy. They're too afraid to express directly. This doesn't make you cynical, it makes you prepared. Seneca wrote, "He who is prepared escapes trouble." And preparation in this context means studying the rhythm beneath the noise, the tension behind the smile, the loop behind the reaction. The goal is not to judge others, but to understand them better than they understand themselves. Not to control, but to navigate wisely. Think about chess. A beginner sees one move at a time. A master sees the sequence. Life is no different. The average person sees the insult. The Stoic sees the cycle. The average person sees the compliment. The Stoic sees the motive. This is why Stoics rarely panic. They're not surprised by the storm. They saw the clouds forming 3 conversations ago. But to see clearly, you must slow down. Most people move too fast to detect patterns. They're in a rush to feel better, to get answers, to escape discomfort. But clarity doesn't live in haste. It lives in stillness, in review, in reflection. If you can create time in your day to observe, not just what happened, but what repeated, you'll begin to see the structure of your life unfolding like a blueprint. One powerful practice is a weekly self-audit, not just journaling how you feel, but listing what repeated, what conversations drained you, what situations made you reactive, what habits crept back in when you were tired. These aren't coincidences, they are signals, and once you catch them, you can change course before the damage repeats. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They were pattern-minded. They understood that the enemy is not pain, but repetition of avoidable pain. If you lose money once, it's a lesson. If you lose it the same way twice, it's a pattern. If you argue with every partner over the same thing, it's a pattern, and what you don't confront, you consent to. This way of living makes you eerily calm. While others overreact, you observe. While others chase closure, you've already closed the loop internally, and that stillness gives you an edge. People will sense it. They won't be able to explain it, but they'll feel your insight, like you see behind their words, and often you will. This doesn't mean you become cold, it means you become clear. You'll still love, still risk, still care. But you won't hand your peace to the same triggers. You won't fall into the same traps. You'll engage with life fully, but from a place of foresight, not fear. And here's the deeper truth. Most people don't change because they never pause long enough to see what needs changing. They keep moving, hoping movement will save them. But movement without awareness is just noise. The Stoic pauses not to escape life, but to read it more clearly. And once you see clearly, you stop getting played by surface appearances. So the next time you feel confusion rising, ask, what's the pattern here? What's repeating? What am I not seeing because I'm too attached to this moment? And if you can step back, even for a few seconds, the entire situation will look different. Patterns reveal truth, and truth once seen sets you free. Not with drama, but with direction. And that's how you outsmart the world. Quietly, with insight, not interference. You move when others are still reacting. You speak when the words will land. And you walk away not when you're tired, but when you've read the last page of the pattern. The power to outsmart others doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from mastery of yourself, your reactions, and your perception. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to prove you're right. You simply need to see clearly. And that clarity is born from discipline. Detach from emotion. Observe your own patterns. Master the pause. And read the world like a quiet strategist. The less you react, the more you see. And the more you see, the more wisely you move. That's the Stoic way. Not to conquer through force, but to win through understanding, quietly, calmly, completely. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment and let me know which principle struck the deepest chord. And if you're walking this path of silent strength, subscribe. This channel exists to remind you of who you are beneath the noise. Until next time, stay grounded, move with intention, and protect your clarity.